Well, good morning, church. It is the 10th day of February, which means we're in the 10th chapter of Acts. Just yesterday, in the ninth chapter, we learned of Saul's conversion and Paul's beginning of his ministry. We know of his letters in the New Testament making up most of the New Testament. And so we continue with the growth of the church, the early church, today learning of another man's conversion story, and this man's name is Cornelius. Cornelius was a Roman centurion stationed in Caesarea, which would have been a large city, heavily fortified by Roman soldiers. And there were a lot of higher officials there. And so, to kind of explain, it says that he is the leader of the Italian cohort. So, to explain, a Roman legion would have had about 6,000 men. Those 6,000 men would have been separated into 10 groups of 600, and each group would have had a centurion as its leader. And so that is what he's doing in Caesarea, and it says that he fears God. So he is praying to God, and he has a vision saying that he needs to send for this man named Peter. He doesn't know why, but he has some of his servants and soldiers go and find this man Peter. At the same time, Peter has a vision, a very famous vision of a sheet that is descending down, and it has clean and unclean animals. Now, it makes sense that Peter's vision involves food because it says that he hadn't eaten. He was actually about to go eat, and so clearly his vision is about food. And although it does talk about the fact that the Old Testament practice of clean and unclean food being done away with, it does talk about that, but it also shows that walls are being broken down in this new church. So whereas before you would have had two sides of Jew and Gentile or non-Jew, that is starting to go away. And this continues when he hears that these servants coming from Cornelius are there. They would have been Gentile. And you have this Jew, Peter, invite them into his home and stay since the road is dangerous. And so the next day, they follow in obedience and they go back to Caesarea. And at this time, Cornelius is anxiously awaiting. He's very excited. He has even called his family and close people to him, and they're waiting to hear what this man Peter is going to say. There's a lot of excitement behind Peter's coming. And so when Peter comes in, he doesn't really know why he's there. And so he kind of starts off with that. But then come to find out, he sees that you have a God-fearing man whose heart is prepared for salvation. And Peter brings the message of salvation. And this family and Cornelius are saved. And it actually says that they wanted to stay with Peter, which shows that they wanted to not only be around other Christians, but they also wanted to grow. They had the opportunity to learn from an apostle who walked with Jesus. So that's the kind of the story that we're going with today. A couple of things to learn from this is, one, whether you are young, old, rich, or poor, guy or girl, whatever it may be, it says that salvation is for everyone. Now, many people can take this and say that clearly you don't have to have a relationship with Christ because salvation is for everyone. That is something called universalism, and that is not true. Clearly, if that was true, Peter would not have had to travel to Cornelius and share the message with him. What we learn, however, is that at one point your heart is prepared for salvation. Cornelius feared God. His heart was prepared for salvation. And then when he accepted and believed in Jesus Christ, that was completed and he was saved. What we also learn is that as believers, we should desire fellowship with other believers, and we should desire to grow. Just as Cornelius was as excited to grow and to be among other believers. And then the final thing that we learn from this is that there is no distinction within the church, and we need to be open to new people coming in, and we should have a desire to go in obedience even if we don't understand. So when we see Cornelius not understanding why he's sending for this man named Peter, he obeyed. We see Peter not understanding why he was going to Cornelius, but he obeyed. And so sometimes you might not understand, yet we are still called to obey. And that's what we see here, whether it be at the point of salvation or throughout your Christian life, whether it be like Cornelius or like Peter. That's what we learn throughout this. And going with this theme, we want to pray this week for those that are in attendance at our church, whether they're Christian or not, that they would have that hunger, have that fear of God and a heart ready to receive that message. And then when they do receive that message, being willing to believe in Jesus and being saved. And then also this week, we are praying for our faithful volunteers, the worship team, tech crew, greeters, ushers, all of those people who week after week faithfully serve this church. And I know personally, being the worship leader here, the worship team coming week after week, spending your guys' time to serve the church. We want to pray blessings over them. So I hope you learn a lot from this 10th chapter of Acts, and as we continue into chapter 11 tomorrow, I'm excited to move forward with you guys in this. Have a great day.